Okay, welcome back. Day 2 of theCUBE here in Las Vegas. We're live. This is SiliconANGLE's exclusive coverage of Amazon Web Services reInvent. I'm John Furrier with Dave Vellante, co-host of theCUBE. Dave, we got our first segment here. We're pleased to have Jerry Chen, new venture capitalist, cloud guru, was at VMware, has been in the enterprise for a while. Guys, welcome to theCUBE. Day 2 kickoff here at Amazon reInvent. Jerry, welcome back. Good to see you,
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, guys.
CUBE alumni. But
so how was Hong Kong? You're just back from OpenStack.
I think Hong Kong was great. My body and time clock someplace over Pacific though, so I don't know if I'm jet lagged, but thank God in Vegas I never need to leave the building, so I don't need to know what time zone I'm actually in. So it's good to be here.
So Amazon's pushing the cloud hard, obviously they are the cloud. Huge market share on infrastructure as a service. Check the boxes there. They got like 36% by our numbers.
I think it's much higher than that, actually. You heard what Jassy was saying today.
Well, I mean,
5x the next 14. It's got to be higher than 36%. I think it's closer to 70.
Okay, but okay, that's infrastructure as a service, but the action's platform as a service and SaaS.
Yeah,
so,
if you can count
Jerry,
that.
I got to get your take on it
Sure.
because we're following OpenStack. You were just in Hong Kong. You got Amazon public cloud. You got OpenStack coming up. You know, as that horse. Those are two-horse race right now. Yeah, CloudStack's out there, but really, it's OpenStack is like the enterprise hope. It's the great hope for the enterprise. With Amazon kind of rolling out massive services, what's your take on the two, and is it a two-horse race? And what's the difference between the two?
You know, I don't think it's a two-horse race yet, but Amazon is quickly becoming the Microsoft monopoly of the public cloud at the rate they're going. They have the size and scale that pretty soon it's going to be really hard to compete, and I think only Google and maybe Microsoft in the public cloud space can really compete. But if you take a step back and look at, to your question, OpenStack versus Amazon, I was in Hong Kong last week at the OpenStack Design Summit, and OpenStack's philosophy is they want to be all things to all people, right? It's open source, multiple projects. Amazon's philosophy is they want to be one cloud to all people. So you saw their announcements today around enterprise use cases, desktop use cases, startup use cases, media use cases. They want to be one cloud to all people. So it's not, the race isn't over yet, but it's very different philosophies right now between the two different camps.
Was there much talk about incorporating Amazon APIs into the whole OpenStack framework? 6 months ago, you heard a lot about that. We had a crowd chat on that,
Sure.
John. What was the buzz there?
I'll be honest, and to the point that you guys brought up earlier, around the Amazon APIs almost are becoming a lingua franca for infrastructure as a service. But quite frankly, debating whether or not they're the right APIs or not isn't, I think, where the action's at. I think the action's at to the point you made earlier around PaaS and other developer services. So the actual APIs, if you do the APIs right, should be pretty easy for developers to adopt. You just create really great developer services around it. Database services, storage services, security services, those are what developers really care about.
So I feel like we have, sometimes called Cloud Plus, Infrastructure
Right.
Service Plus, and you got SaaS minus, with like what you have with Salesforce. Do you feel like we really need that PaaS layer, or does that just sort of bifurcate into one of those two?
There's a school of thought that says the world goes into two worlds. A long tail of SaaS apps. So there's an app for everything, in which case you have SaaS or SaaS minus, and then infrastructure, private cloud for a bunch of legacy apps. There's no middle ground for PaaS. I'm more towards the middle ground because in a world where you have multiple SaaS providers and multiple clouds, I believe you're going to have multiple SaaS and multiple clouds, you're going to need to integrate and stitch together a mashup of applications, right? You have Workday for HCM, Salesforce for CRM applications, your own custom website running on Amazon. There are 3 different clouds. ServiceNow. How are you going to connect the data? How are you going to move data around? There's going to be at least some kind of PaaS layer, integration layer, or cloud layer that needs to help stitch together this multi-cloud world.
So you like the pivotal play?
I think
in concept.
In concept, right? I think Paul is Paul's a visionary, and a bunch of my friends still work there. Their announcement yesterday was I think a step in the right direction. That they're planting a flag saying that there has to be something beyond Amazon. There has to be a relevant private cloud initiative, be it VMware or OpenStack or someplace else, and let's create some services around it. And the angle they're taking around data and data services, I think, is probably the right bet, because all these new applications will need these data services to be relevant.
We were talking about Pivotal yesterday, and one of the things that we were critical on, but also hopeful, as you pointed out, it's early, right? So to
Sure.
give Pivotal a mulligan or a pass, if you will, is it's early. And it's really a new company, if you think about it, 1,600 employees, but new. But its window dressing announcement, it really wasn't really. I mean, so the same logos, I mean, come on. They're trying to overhype, and that's what people are talking about, saying, hey, guys, just be honest and say, we're working as fast as we can. Because Amazon is not going to break the enterprise right away. I mean, they also have a longer road, and they're going hard at the enterprise. So they are going after IBM. We saw in the keynote, they called out IBM specifically around some of the advertising around the show.
Yep.
So Amazon is clearly trying to knock on the door of the enterprise. So the question we are asking and talking about is, how much time is it till they proliferate the enterprise? I mean, they're in there now, toe in the water, little beachhead, but still not enterprise ready in the sense of the SLAs and the demands. Or does it matter? So what's your take? How much time is really on the radar for Amazon? When will the clock be expiring for the IBMs, HPs, Pivotals, in terms of retooling?
So I think the evolution around enterprise public cloud like Amazon would take 3 potential paths. So path 1 around Amazon, Amazon invests enough engineering and product talent to make their cloud enterprise friendly. Privacy, security, reliability. And they're hiring a bunch of folks from my old place, VMware, try to do that. That's path 1. Path 2 is you see a category of startups out there trying to make Amazon more cloud and enterprise friendly. Security, privacy, reliability, right? So that's path 2. And as a Greylock venture capitalist, we're investing in a bunch of companies trying to make that happen. Or path 3 is developers out there engineer around the weaknesses of Amazon. So they know Amazon isn't enterprise friendly, they know Amazon's got a bunch of weaknesses around security and privacy, and they just write their application around those weaknesses. So I think those are the 3 evolutionary paths, and I think it's a race to see who wins, right? 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Amazon's forcing the hand of the big guys, and you're seeing that clearly. We have a question on our crowd chat. Go to crowdchat.net/reinvent. We've got a live crowd-sourced thought leader chat there. All goes to Twitter and LinkedIn, depends on where you sign in. But the question, Jerry, to you is, how are cloud providers catering to provide low latency access to developing markets like India, Indonesia, Philippines, et cetera, given that the hurricanes just destroyed all the infrastructure, considering there is huge potential explosive internet growth. So given that those new emerging markets are essentially refreshing their infrastructure, what is the cloud provider's take on that? Do you work in that area? Do you have any opinion on what's going on in those areas?
Sure, I mean, I think that the world is looking at 2 or 3 different clouds. You say there's a US-dominated cloud, maybe a China-dominated cloud, and the rest of the world, right? Generally, a lot of analysts kind of segment the world in 3 major buckets. When you think about developing markets or other geographies like Asia, Southeast Asia, or South America, huge markets, a lot of developers, a lot of applications. It's the reason why I think there's only a handful of providers that can have the scope and the reach to reach globally. I think Equinix, Rackspace, Google, Microsoft are all global footprint players. Everyone else, I think you're going to look at a federation of multiple players. So every region has a local telco or cloud provider. It could be like an NTT or Rakuten in Japan. It could be a Singtel in Singapore and Southeast Asia. So I think you're going to see a global brand around like Amazon or VMware, and VMware trying to franchise their own cloud, or Microsoft, and then I would see partnerships working between the different geographies. And maybe OpenStack is that partnership. Maybe Amazon APIs is the way different clouds communicate. It remains to be seen what that interface between the different geos look like in the future.
And what do you see as IBM's role? I mean, first of all, do they have that global scale?
Sure.
Are you sort of purposefully leaving them out, or just forget about them and just don't feel like they can compete on that global scale? And what do you see as their role in OpenStack?
So, bunch of questions there. IBM didn't mean to leave them out. They're definitely relevant, especially for the large enterprises. So I think you're seeing enterprise adoption come from large startups or small startups growing up in the cloud, as well as large enterprises that are looking to modernize their applications, and I think IBM has a great role to play from kind of that top-down approach. I think IBM, between a combination of soft layers, which is their acquired cloud provider, combined with their global services and their consulting business, will be probably relevant to large enterprises, in my mind.
So talk about the Amazon Enterprise March here. Obviously they're talking about Cloud Trails, which is kind of like a monitoring service, compliance oriented, and obviously VDI. So you've been close to the VDI movement, so those are.
I started the VDI movement.
Started the VDI movement. So being there, what is your take on that? Because that's very enterprisey, and that's
Sure.
good for business. What's their chances there?
Well, I think, so first on the VDI market, we started that at VMware in 05, 06 when we coined the term VDI. And I think it's a great service for large enterprises that need secure managed desktops. I think I would love to see a VDI service from VMware and Amazon 5, 6, 7 years ago, because now VDI I think is part of a larger solution. It's significant, but not enough, right? Because now enterprises care about their managed desktops like VDI, but my iPad devices, iOS devices, Android devices, they really want kind of a holistically managed desktop or workspace environment. So if I were Amazon, I would expand beyond Windows into other, operating systems to manage like Android and iOS, but that's what they're serious about, managing enterprise workspaces.
Do they have an advantage in your opinion, despite the fact that they're so late to market? Do they have an advantage in that? And I mean, in essence, they are starting around mobile developers, aren't they? Whereas when you started, that wasn't a consideration,
Correct.
right? And Citrix sort of found its way there, right? But
I think between Amazon and I think Google's in a great position because they own so much of the Android stack, right? If they want to create an enterprise-friendly, managed Android environment for Chromebooks, Android devices, they can start creating a bunch of great developer services. Like, imagine Google Drive, but secured on kind of a Google Cloud or something like that. That could be pretty compelling. I don't know if they're going there. I think Dropbox has a great opportunity to kind of be that back-end platform, obviously a Greylock investment, but Dropbox has that huge opportunity to be that kind of managed secure service across mobile devices and desktop devices. Because all of a sudden, the one overarching fact you have between Windows, iOS, and Android is your data, and Dropbox is on all three platforms.
Jerry, we got to get rolling, and we got our next guest coming, but I want to ask you, Ashley, talk about what you're investing in at Greylock. Greylock, Tier 1 VC, you guys have done amazing deals. I mean, just recently in the past decade, Greylock has emerged from just a Tier 1 VC to a mega success, good investments. You're on the enterprise team there, actually the consumer side's kick ass. What's going on for you guys? What are you investing in? What are you looking at? Enterprise is not an easy game to invest in, obviously it's hard, but what are you guys doing? What are you investing? What are you looking for?
I'm looking at across the categories. Most relevant for this audience is I'm really interested in looking at startups that can either A, make Amazon a more enterprise-friendly cloud, or B, startups that will pose an alternative or challenge to Amazon in the enterprise cloud space. And you do that either by focus on enterprise requirements or focus on enterprise services like data, storage, security, that manage the enterprises and just focus on doing that really, really well, better than VMware, better than Microsoft, better than Amazon. I think can build a really big enterprise cloud business around those technology services.
Well, you're essentially betting on that transformation from the way the world is to cloud,
It's
right?
post-server world, no one's buying servers, they're all trying to find a
more.
cloud partner. That's the direction we're headed.
And are you bullish on this integrated stack offering? Obviously, DevOps has been a big success. You see Facebook, you see Google, you see Amazon building their own gear. They were kind of saying we're not playing in open compute, but that aside, DevOps is a software model.
Absolutely.
And so the integrated stack, what's your comment on integrated stack and how that's going to evolve for, quote, the mainstream of DevOps?
Absolutely, so you see this DevOps culture permeating first development of applications, now how you manage your infrastructure. So you look at what's happened with Open Compute and open source switches, which I think Open Compute project announced a couple of days ago. You're seeing that kind of DevOps culture and how they manage and update their applications, permeate storage, compute, and now networking. That's going to be kind of a common adoption curve throughout the cloud. So the way DevOps technologies are getting adopted from languages to frameworks to databases is the same way we're seeing storage, compute, and networking technologies get adopted in this next cloud wave.
What's your take on the iPhone for the enterprise, Amazon cloud kind of metaphor, and OpenStack being more the Android? We were talking earlier.
Right.
Just get your thoughts there. And OpenStack obviously has a lot of legs right now, but it's very open. iPhone model or Amazon is kind of closed, or some say lock-in, but it's still, apps are not closed.
Right, so the metaphor was, iPhone is to Amazon as Android is to OpenStack. And I think at a high level that kind of makes sense, but not really, because there's no Google behind OpenStack like there's a Google behind Android. So I think Rackspace was an early leader and still is a leader in the OpenStack space, but there's also Red Hat, there's a bunch of other players there. So as a result, there's no single entity kind of driving OpenStack like Google's driving Android. So that analogy kind of breaks down. And then as far as Apple analogy to Amazon, I think Amazon is a lot more open than the iOS ecosystem is, because just the fact that there's no governing board to approve your apps to launch on Amazon, right? I can go stand up an EC2 instance, launch my application.
Anybody can use it.
I don't need to wait for
apps,
this.
right.
There's not a 20-page approval process. So notionally, directionally, that's more correct than not, but the analogy breaks down when you really get into it.
And OpenStack, your prospects for OpenStack, what's your outlook on OpenStack real quickly?
I think OpenStack is holistically, I think is great. I'm more bullish on certain sub-projects than I am of the overall. I think they keep launching new projects. Some are going to be better than others. The core projects around compute and storage and this API management, I'm bullish on. I'm especially bullish on what they're doing around containers like Docker and CoreOS and kind of adopting this next generation of cloud platforms.
Well, we got to go. We got some fans out there who want to hear your take on VDI, so go tweet to @Jerry Chen, JERRYCHEN. We got a break here. We'd love to have you on a little longer. We got our next guest coming on. This is theCUBE live in Las Vegas, day 2 of Amazon's reInvent, changing the cloud game in the enterprise, and we get all the detailed coverage here on theCUBE. We'll be right back after this short break.